or some passphrase that's 50, 60, 70 characters long. A long key is very hard to remember. Writing it down has a certain set of problems. Storing it somewhere has a different set of problems. So it's not just encryption that's the problem, it's managing these keys, communicating the keys if I have to share something. If I have a laptop and for some reason I have to swap laptops with a colleague, or the colleague needs access to some of the files on my laptop, how do we exchange our keys? How do we do this in a secure manner? There are, obviously, in programs, implementation flaws. These are relatively rare. There's usually a fairly strong testing process associated with encryption algorithms. So these tend to be fairly rare. Algorithm weaknesses pop up from time to time with just absolute randomness. You never know when an algorithm is going to exhibit a flaw that will be detected. But the biggest problem is this bottom line problem, that is data in the clear. Anybody been reading the papers in the last, it's been in the last 2 weeks, TJX Corporation, 2 months ago roughly, or 1 month ago roughly, they announced a major security problem, and the problem was that the credit card numbers of many of their customers had potentially been exposed, and this exposure stretches back for a couple of years. Okay. They used encryption, so they should have been safe. No, they weren't safe, and the reason they weren't safe was actually twofold. One part of the problem was you can't always use encrypted data. At some point you have to decrypt the data in order to use it. And as soon as you decrypt it, which we in the field call placing it in the clear, as soon as you make it in the clear, then, whoops, somebody can get a hold of it. And if they get a hold of it after it's been decrypted, after it's made available again, then it's exposed. Okay, so that's problem number one. Problem number two is, and TJX Corporation did have that problem, but the reason they had that problem was problem number two. Unknown whether it was an insider or an outsider, someone installed malicious software on their computers. The malicious software is believed, the analysis is still preliminary, the malicious software is believed to have had the ability to decrypt. Okay. It was believed to have access to the encryption keys or decryption keys and the algorithm. Okay. So all that beautiful encrypted data that's nicely protected on TJX's computers is not protected. It's not protected at all. So encryption is very powerful. Encryption is good. Don't misinterpret my message. Encryption is a wonderful thing. Encryption is very strong. There are some excellent encryption algorithms. Using them is a strong form of protection. But we have very few true end-to-end encryption techniques. End-to-end meaning from the moment it first appears in the computer until the moment it is used. As I described, when it first goes in, there's a period before it gets encrypted. So it's exposed here. Then we go through a fairly long period when it is encrypted, and then there's another period here at the end after it is decrypted prior to its being used. It's exposed there. So we've got that exposure, plus we've got the exposure that TJX faced, that a malicious agent had somehow gotten in there and had subverted the encryption process. So all that encryption was doing nothing. It was not protecting their data the way they thought it should. Remember my story about security dust, security fairy dust. Many people think encryption is the security fairy dust. Just sprinkle a little encryption on top of it and that'll make all problems go away. And it's true, encryption does solve a lot of problems, but not every problem. Okay. Now the other anecdote that I want to relate is another customer interaction when a customer came to me and said, which is better, encryption or an intrusion detection system? And after I got up off the floor, my answer was, well, tell me a little bit more about what you're trying to do. Because those two are usually not thought of as being opposites or as being complementary approaches. The customer essentially had some amount of money to spend. And the amount of money would buy one of two things, either an intrusion detection system or an encryption approach. And one sales representative had been in and had said, intrusion detection systems are really wonderful. They're exactly what you need to solve your problem. Another sales representative or magazine article or something had said, encryption is the most powerful protection tool that we have available. So to this person, the two were exchangeable. They were comparable. Okay? So it was a valid question to this person, which is better? Should I have encryption or should I have an intrusion detection system? And with a little explanation to point out that the two were solving entirely different kinds of problems, the person came around and said, well, I can understand that the question I asked is not the question I should be asking. Again, fortunately, that person asked the question. Many times, the person isn't going to have two sources of information. Many times, the sales rep is going to come in and say, intrusion detection systems are really great things and they can catch hackers before they even think about attacking your system. So buy my intrusion detection system and install it and you're safe. Okay. People want the silver bullet. Silver bullet doesn't exist. So encryption is a very, very strong tool, but we have to make sure the outside community understands it has its limitations too. Okay. Another misperception out in the marketplace, and we actually foster this ourselves, is we say either you have perfect security or you have nothing. Okay? I think the reason we get this is because of the Defense Department. Because the Defense Department, many years ago, went on an approach where they wanted trusted computer systems. And they had this system designed for how to determine how trustworthy a system is and what to look for in a trustworthy system and how to rank the trustworthiness of a system. And they had a nice rating scale. What you found was some people responsible for projects would say, I need the best security I can get because this is a system that's protecting the United States of America, so I want the best system I can get. Give me an A1 system. Well, there were very few A1 systems because they were extremely difficult to produce, costly to produce, and met very, very, very specialized needs. The rest of the community didn't understand that. They said, A1 is good. I want an A. Student in a class. How many students come in and say, I'm looking for a C+ in this class? Well, okay, some do. Most students come in and say, I'm looking for a good grade in this class. I want an A. I'd be satisfied with a B+, but I really deserve an A. Most students are really in there to learn. Okay. Coming in to a system design and saying, I want just sort of average run-of-the-mill security, doesn't sound like the right answer. People want to be able to say, I've done the best I can do for security. I've bought the most expensive security solution. I've bought the most highly ranked solution. I've really put effort and energy into this to show that security is important. And the question is, what did they end up with in the end? Well, they ended up with a system that was scarcely usable and far more expensive than they should have gotten. So to look at either perfect security or nothing is a false way of looking at it. If you're riding on a tightrope, yes, you're either on the tightrope or you're not on the tightrope, and the consequences of not being on the tightrope are pretty catastrophic. Okay. Security doesn't go that way. Security really is a continuum. You can have a little security, you can have a moderate amount of security, you can have a whole lot of security. You can have a little risk, a medium amount of risk, a whole lot of risk. You can have a few vulnerabilities, moderate number of vulnerabilities, a lot of vulnerabilities. You can have a very attractive situation for an attacker, a moderately attractive, an unattractive